Well, turns out American consumers don't want to pay thousands more for their Apple products. Who knew? President Donald Trump has made a tariff concession overnight, exempting smartphones and computers from the bulk of his China tariffs. So, is he folding? And how will this standoff end? Anna Fifield is the Asia-Pacific editor at The Washington Post and is with us now. Kia ora, Anna. Thanks for being with us. What do you make of that concession?
I think it's going to make Xi Jinping and the Chinese leader feel like he has even more of an upper hand in this standoff between these two leaders, because Donald Trump has said throughout this tariff war there will be no negotiations, there will be no exemptions. In the past week we have seen him welcome negotiations with 75 countries when the stock market tanked and the bond market went haywire, and now he has done another flip-flop on electronic goods, exempting them from the tariffs that he's imposed on China. And that's because companies like Apple, like the chip maker Nvidia in the United States, have been reinforcing to the White House just what an enormous impact these tariffs will have on their businesses, on their prices. They're talking about another $700 on an iPhone for American consumers. So there's a lot of panic among American companies, and they've been leaning on Donald Trump to change his mind on this, and he has. So we're essentially now in this kind of game of chicken between the leaders of the world's two biggest economies, and we're just waiting to see who blinks first, and Donald Trump has blinked twice this week.
Can you give us a sense as to how this situation is being received by people in China?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell what people in China actually think, because the news that they get about all of this is very highly censored. But the consistent message from Beijing, from the Communist Party leaders there, has been one of defiance. They have said that they will fight to the end on this. They have matched the tariffs every round that Donald Trump has imposed. And I think the leadership in Beijing really sees this as a staring competition, as a chance to prove themselves Donald Trump's equal. And we've seen over the years, over the decades, that the Chinese leadership will sacrifice people's well-being, people's comfort for the greater good of the Communist Party, for the strength of national security of the economy. So I think they won't be too worried about whether Chinese people feel the pinch at the moment. And they have a lot of financial instruments in their quiver at the moment as well that they could unleash in terms of boosting consumption, giving payouts to households in China that they can try to alleviate some of the impact a bit.
Yeah, talk to us a bit more about that. If indeed this trade war drags on, what is likely to be the impact on China's economy?
It's going to be enormous on both economies. We're now talking about 145% tariffs on all Chinese goods, apart from these electronics that were just exempted. The Chinese economy is not in great shape. They've been trying to hit 5% growth each year. That's been quite tricky. But the one bright spot in the economy has been exports, has been all of the solar panels and BYD cars and goods that they have been sending out to the world. And so that has helped soften the impact of this very weak domestic economy inside China. They're stuck in a property market slump. The jobless rate is really high. So exports has been the one thing that has been softening that blow, and now that takes a hit with this trade war, that's really going to hurt their economy.
It's been fascinating over the last couple of weeks to look at different responses from around the world, and I think there was a photograph that caught a lot of attention, and that was the leaders of South Korea, or trade leaders of South Korea, China and Japan shaking hands there. What is the likelihood that we see South Korea, Japan, China, these big Asian economies working more closely together as a response to the tariffs?
Yeah, well, that meeting, the photo that you're talking about, was already set up before all of these tariffs came in. But it was a good opportunity. I mean, China has certainly made a meal out of this and saying, look, we're already working more closely. I think Japan and South Korea, both very strong security allies of the United States, were completely dumbfounded, flummoxed to be hit with these huge tariffs, 24% and 25% respectively. So that has really caused a lot of soul searching in both of those countries. They both do a lot of trade already with China as well. So they are just now trying to rebalance and figure out how to thread this needle. I think it's inevitable that there will be some closer economic ties, because the certainty of the US market has been called into question. But neither of these countries is going to want to become a dumping ground for Chinese products that they can't sell in the United States.
So as it stands this morning, who would you say has the upper hand in this face-off between China and the US?
I think Xi Jinping definitely has the upper hand. He feels that he is on solid ground and standing up to Donald Trump. We have these, in both countries, we have these populist, nationalist leaders who are both trying to make their countries great again. Xi Jinping looks at the pressures on Donald Trump, the stock market, the head of JP Morgan, the bond market, Apple, Nvidia, all of these companies and market forces putting pressure on him and causing him to flip-flop, to change course from time to time. I think that Xi Jinping feels like he can hold out for longer. And so I think we're not going to see many concessions from the Chinese side. I think the really scary thing at the moment is that I don't see where the off-ramp from this crisis is. And this is rapidly becoming about so much more than trade. I think really decoupling is now well underway, this concept that Donald Trump has talked about for a long time. And I think that this is going to have ramifications in the Taiwan Strait, as you just talked about with Judith Collins, like in the national security spheres and the military spheres and the technology spheres, and on the kinds of things where China has been cooperating with the world, like climate change progress. So I think this is much, much bigger than trade already. I think the tariffs almost don't count anymore because the number is so huge that it's just going to bring the trade between the world's two biggest economies to a halt. So we're in quite scary territory.